All right, looks like we have about 70 people here. That's been about the norm for the last few months from everywhere, Europe and all over the US and Philippines and South Korea. And as the way we'll organize this is the way we've done it before. We'll have this introduction, and after this welcome and introduction, we'll have a 15 or 20 minute meditation. And then we'll move into breakout rooms for about 30 minutes. And when we all come back, we'll end with a discussion and Q&A. And as I was thinking about today, I was thinking about what kinds of responses I get from people who finish the course and graduate, and how I know when somebody's graduated, of course, is when they send their practice sheets and their letters of learning. And almost always, I've noticed and come to the conclusion that of all the things, all the components that go into learning to meditate, to pay attention with mindfulness to our lives, there are a lot of components, of course, but maybe an essential part, or maybe the essential part of healthy meditation practice is self-compassion. How we treat ourselves when something goes wrong in the meditation or in life. And in meditation, it's often our thoughts that kind of take us what we think is off track, with mind wandering somewhere or else. And for a new meditator, it happens almost continuously. It's what we call monkey mind. And there's actually nothing wrong with the mind wandering, and this happens to everybody, even experienced meditators, at least to some degree. And it's ironic that it's those moments where we notice our mind is wandering, that we're the most unkind to ourselves. That's the time we get self-critical. We might say to ourselves, why can't I focus for more than a second or two? I'm not good at this. I can't meditate. And a big part of the practice is learning how to be with ourselves when our mind wanders, how to be with ourselves when something goes off track in our life. And in meditation, it is so ironic, because that moment of meditation where our mind is wandered, when we notice that that's happened, that's actually a time for celebration. That's a time of awakening for ourselves, and a time to be compassionate with ourselves. And that's really a key part of practice, is learning how to do that. Because if it weren't that way, you just think about it, if every time your mind went off somewhere else, which happens often for most of us, you were self-critical and beat yourself up, it wouldn't be a very comfortable experience. You wouldn't really want to do this very often. And it's often why it's difficult to start and continue a meditation practice. And when things go wrong, either in meditation or in life, that's really where rubber meets the road, where things become more difficult. Because after all, if mindfulness were just about being mindful when things are good, that doesn't sound so difficult. You're just sort of remembering to pay attention to what you're eating or what you're doing, or maybe enjoying time with friends or whatever. If I could do screen share quickly enough, I'd show you a cartoon, but it takes you a second or two to get that set up. So you've probably seen this cartoon. There's just a line drawing of somebody, and one of the thought bubbles above her head is, she says to herself, today I will live in the moment. And then there's another screen bubble that pops up, a thought bubble. It says, unless the moment's unpleasant, in which case I'm going to eat a cookie. Now, this is typical of us, is that we don't know quite what to do when things get difficult. We eat a cookie, distract ourselves, go eat something, talk to a friend, do something, take our mind off of it. Or for many of us, there's only the two options. One is to push it away by doing something else and engaging in some distracting habit. Or we get lost in a morass of descending self-negative thoughts and images. But there's a middle way. And if you remember from the course, the entire week 5 is devoted to this middle way. We call it turning toward. It's specifically devoted to dealing with productively with negative emotions, with difficult emotions or physical pain, finding a middle way, a way between drowning a negative emotion or its opposite, denial and avoidance and distraction. And it's a way to recognize the difficulty when it happens with clear eyes, but without plunging into a spiral of depression or self-pity or for projecting outwards to blame. And a key part of doing this skillfully is doing this by bringing in a larger perspective and doing this all, and maybe this is really, I think, the key component, doing this with self-compassion, with kindness, treating yourself the way you might treat a good friend who was in a similar position, was having difficulty. You wouldn't criticize them for not being able to handle it well. You'd just be with them. If it's a child, you just hold them. If it's somebody you care about, you might hug them. So the theme for today's meditation and for our small group discussion is going to be be self-compassion. So in a few minutes, we'll begin the meditation. Now we'll go into a meditation, and you can just make yourself comfortable. However you do that for yourself, wherever you're sitting. And just taking a moment to check in with body. Just noticing how your weight is distributed on the chair or the cushion of the couch. How your feet may be making contact with the floor or your cushion or your pad. Actually sensing into sensations of pressure, of contact, tingling or throbbing. And it's fine if you don't notice anything in particular, just having a channel open to receive anything that might be coming from the body right now. Feeling how your arms are resting at your side or your hands in your lap. When you're ready, beginning to pay attention to breath. So wherever it is you feel it most vividly, whether that's in your tummy or your chest or your throat or your nostrils, there's no wrong place to feel breath. Just wherever you can track it most easily. And letting your breath just move at whatever rhythm it wants to move. In a way, you're not breathing, you're being breathed. You're just letting the breath happen, the same way you'd watch waves at the seashore. The waves come and go at their own pace. You don't need for them to be bigger or smaller or faster or slower. You're breathing just fine. There's nothing for you to do except pay attention to your experience. And seeing if you can be with the entire cycle of breath. The whole intake, place where it turns around, it actually stops for just a moment, just watching that. And you naturally move into the other direction. And if you find your mind wandering or going into some sort of analysis or a thought or an image of past or future, we don't beat ourselves up about that. We just notice that that's happened, because when you've noticed, you've awakened again. And bring your awareness gently but firmly back to breathing. When you're ready, see if you can recall a time in your life when you made a mistake. Not necessarily a life or death mistake. It would be good to pick something that's not super traumatic, but maybe something like missing a turn while you're driving, or one of those times you hit send just as you notice a serious error in an email, or saying something inappropriate or unkind to somebody. Time when after you did it, there was some regret. Either just with one other person or with a number of other people or in front of a group even. And when this thing happened, when you made a mistake, remembering where you were and who you were with, recalling what you said to yourself at that moment. How did you treat yourself? For most of it, it's some sort of recrimination, or and then even an X-rated word or two about having done this. Or blaming yourself or castigating yourself, saying you dummy or how stupid, how could I do this? It's noticing that that comes up. And the feeling associated with that. And as you recall this moment, as you're replaying it yourself, imagine how you would react if a friend told you about the same kind of mistake or inappropriate comment or action. It's a good friend you cared about. What would you say to them if they made a similar mistake? How would you say it? What kind of kindness would be there for them that you didn't allow for yourself? You might even recall a specific time when somebody you cared about made a serious mistake or an inappropriate comment, and you were there and you were able to comfort them about that because they're beating themselves up about it. Letting know that everyone makes mistakes. It could be a child or a close friend or a colleague. It could be something that happened recently or some time ago. Recalling how easy it was to be kind to them. You wouldn't think about giving them a hard time if you really cared about them and you had your wits about you. And now, if this is possible, recalling that one of those times when you made a serious mistake or an inappropriate comment, something you regretted, what it would be like if you could treat yourself the way you treat your friends or your loved ones when they make a mistake, with kindness and consideration and allowance for people to be able to make mistakes. So it'd be a softness and a gentleness that kind of wrapped around the initial reaction of self-recrimination or self-criticism. Letting yourself know that it's human to make mistakes. You can resolve not to make the same mistake again, but you can do that with maybe with some firmness, but with kindness as well. What would that be like? If you could treat yourself with the same kind of kindness and gentleness and considerations as your good friends treat you when something goes wrong. The next 6 or 7 minutes of the meditation will be in silence. So you can continue on listening if you like, or make it into a breath meditation or any kind of meditation that you feel is right for you right now. This will be your time for the next 7 minutes or so, and I'll ring the bell when the time ends. I think everybody is back. Got 87 people that are here right now. Welcome back. I hope you had a good meeting in your chat, in your breakout room.
Lovely. Yes.
And let me close this out and get the participant list up. All right. And if you like, well, what the time we have left, we have about 15 minutes left. So this is a time when we can have some discussion with the entire group, or time for questions and answers, or any comments you'd like to make. And if you'd like to say something or ask a question or make a comment or share about the experience that you had in the breakout groups, you can raise your hand and Lauren will see that and we'll spotlight you so that we can chat. So I see Sarah has
okay, Sarah's got her hand up. So
Okay, well, first of all, there was one day I woke up and I was really feeling grouchy and sad. And I shared this with my group, and I had half a banana in the refrigerator and I cut it. I don't know if you could see it, but it was a frowny face on the banana, and it really made me laugh. And I thought, oh, God has a higher power, has a sense of humor, you know, and all of the slices had that frowny face. And I thought, okay, what a wake-up call, you know. So
that is great.
Isn't that great? I've never seen that before. And also, I wanted, in the chat, Dave, I asked you about the STOP acronym. Because I know that, so I wanted you to mention that. But I'm also wondering how people deal with shame. Okay, there's an acronym, like, especially with mindfulness, like when you're feeling shame, because I know for me, it takes a few days for me to notice, oh, it's shame.
Just to notice that, yeah. Yeah, and Lauren, I wonder, Lauren and I are going to do a little experiment. And Lauren, if you can see if there's a way to put both Sarah and I on Spotlight. We thought maybe
you are
we could
already.
do
I've already done it.
Oh, okay. So I have to put this probably on speaker view then. I don't. Yeah, I just see the one of us. But that's all right. So, so about stop and about shame was the question, but. There's some really good videos on shame, and Brene Brown is got some wonderful videos about and writings about dealing with shame and about dealing with that when that happens for us. And so there's some on the site, I think, but if you just do a search under YouTube or Google search for Brene Brown, you'll find some of her writings, and really very good. And she's got one very famous video that's got millions and millions of views. So if you look on YouTube, you see that one pop up. If you haven't seen that before, it's probably the best representation of her work about vulnerability and about shame. And you had a question about stop. Is there a specific question about that?
What is? Yeah, let's see what it stands for. I think I thought it was stop, take a breath, observe, and proceed.
There you go.
Or objective.
Yeah, and proceed. And that's all in week 4. If you look, there'll be there's some writings on stop and a video on stop, and it's the S is, like you say, stop. T is for, we say it's to make the acronym work. It's T for take a breath. But actually we say just being aware of breath, bringing awareness to breath at that moment. And being aware of body and breath, you know, just taking it all in. And the observe is opening up to all of what's going on after you've had a moment to take a breath or so and notice your breathing. And then proceed is just to move on from there. So what often happens when a moment is taken in that way to just halt whatever inner narrative is going on and find your breath, and then opening back up to what's going on outside, if you're in a meeting or with somebody else or even by yourself, often something else can come then because you made the space for it. So it's about making a space.
Okay, thank you.
Help?
Yeah,
Okay.
helps a lot. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
Good to see you.
Shishir, Shishir is next. Shishir, you've unmuted. Good, and I will spotlight you.
Hi, Shishir.
Hi. Spotlight feels like such a nervous word to be in the middle of.
I'm sorry?
The word spotlight feels so nervous. Like it's like you're in the spotlight. Actually, I had a question of my own, but I think something more important is a question of one of the participants I was with in the chat room. I can ask mine later. She was mentioning how every time she's doing a course where she's doing mindful walking, and every time she does start mindful walking or even thinks about it, she feels like motion sickness almost. Feels like throwing up. And she said it's never happened before. It happened 6-7 years back when she did loving kindness meditation once, but it's just lately come back. And we discussed how maybe we should discuss it with you, but she didn't raise her hand, so I thought I just ask on her
Well, it's
behalf.
nice of you to think of her. If that's, I don't have a specific solution for having that not happen, but it would be interesting to know, and if she's willing to raise her hands, we could talk to her, we could do that too, but it'd be interesting to know whether it happens all the time or just sometimes, because walking slowly and paying attention that way is very different than the normal way we pay attention to walking, and it can even make you a little dizzy sometimes just doing that. And so it's perfectly okay to stop or sit down or do something different. The walking is not so important as just moving of some sort. So if walking doesn't work, I would suggest to her that just don't try to combine the meditation with walking, but use meditation for other types of activities like eating or doing activities that involve hands, not walking, because walking involves balance. It's easy to imagine how there might be a sense of vertigo or even nausea that sometimes can happen. So I would just suggest not doing it if you can't make it work, and just do some other activity. That would be my suggestion. But you had a question too for yourself.
Yeah. I actually had a couple of questions, and this was more related to teaching mindfulness. So I don't know if I should take the group's time right now, or maybe sort of speak to you later. If that's okay, I can ask now.
Well, you're probably not the only person who's interested in teaching. There are a number of people I know that are in the group that are interested in teaching. So please ask.
Okay, so there were two questions actually. The first and the biggest thing was, while designing a program to teach, my biggest hindrance is how do I incentivize people to be regular with it? Because I don't want it to be a fee-based teaching. I do want it to be something that's offered to people without there being any constraints on money, etc. But the financial aspect sometimes is also a great incentive for people to join in regularly, without which it may just lapse out. And there were a couple of ideas, but I thought I just ask you if there are specific ideas or thoughts that you may have seen or thought of in the past.
Yeah, so Shishir, when you're in your teaching, are you teaching in person, face to face,
Online.
or by Zoom?
By Zoom.
By Zoom. Okay.
Yeah.
I know there's one participant, Jerry Combro, who has a lot of experience doing that in teaching via Zoom about keeping people involved.
Sure.
And I remember he and I have had conversations about this, and he can raise his hand if he wants to contribute something to you and to the group about how to keep people involved via Zoom. In my mind, it's having to pay for something. There's some kind of incentive in that way, but maybe even more important than that, and what Jerry has told me for the online groups, is developing a sense of community. So the people who are there feel a connection with other people that are there, and they want to come back, and that would keep them engaged and involved. And that, depending on the size of your group, it may mean doing breakout rooms and having them a chance to chat. Jerry says three people in a breakout room works really well. So they have a connection, and then with that connection, they're more likely to be coming back because there's somebody else in the group that they already know and have some relationship with.
Okay, that's great. And just the
And
other
was the second question?
Yeah, the other part of this was that since I'm not a trained therapist, I'll be doing like a very generic mindfulness course. Are there any things that I need to personally sort of take care of before going public, or just in terms of instructions to provide, etc., to people before they join in? Or anything that I need to do specially, or just like floating a mindfulness course itself brings with it that understanding?
Well, you know what I would recommend, because doing a course via Zoom is different than doing one in person,
Right.
and the person who has the most experience with this is Jerry Cambra, who is in this session today.
Sure.
And I'm going to make a note to myself, and I'll send you information about his groups, which are run by Zoom. And I'd recommend just doing one of his groups. You see how he does it, and he also has some instruction he does for people who want to be teaching mindfulness. Very inexpensive. It's $50 to be in his group, and because he wants to make it available to anybody. Even if that were an issue, there'd be a way to do it without less of a fee. But that's something that's doable for many people. But I have your email, I know, and I have his, so I'm going to connect you by email.
Sure.
And anybody else who's interested in instruction via Zoom, send me an email and I'll connect you with Jerry.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dave. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you, Shishir. Jim Kenyon has his hand up. So Jim, would you unmute? And I will spotlight you. And I will unspotlight Shishir.
Good to be here today. Had a great session.
Hey, Jim.
Shishir was in our group. Pleasure to meet people literally from around the world.
Yeah.
Very quickly, I just want to mention one theme that was discussed in our group, and that was the idea that when you make a mistake, that you can make it a learning opportunity rather than saying, oh, I made that mistake.
Yeah.
I used the example of playing music, which I shared with the group. And when I would make a mistake, I have adopted the attitude, I'm going to make a mistake when I play, especially solo in front of people. And that takes the anxiety to a much lower level. And I also treat it as a learning experience, like, oh, I did this, here's how I can improve on that. And I just have this positive approach that when I make mistakes, it's always a learning opportunity. Mm-hmm. So I think it builds a little bit on what you had said when we were getting started today. And it was echoed by several of the participants in our group today. So it's a way to just really shine a positive light on things that sometimes can be very challenging. So that's what I wanted to share.
Comment. Yeah, because it is a learning opportunity, but at the time, it doesn't feel like an opportunity. It just feels bad. You know, you don't wish it had happened. And a friend of mine coined the acronym, you might have heard it from me before, it's AFLO, another effing learning opportunity. Because at the moment it happens, it feels bad, you don't like it, you want it not to have happened. But if you can make that shift that you're describing, saying this is the opportunity, this is exactly the opportunity to learn something, you know, whether you can correct it on the spot or not, you know, there's a learning process. And there's actually a book called Being Wrong. I don't remember the author's name, but it is really about that. That's learning, and that's growth, and that's emergence. If you are never ever wrong, there'd be no growth. You know, and it's really a way of being open to what's happened and remembering that it's a learning opportunity. So that's a great example. And music is, I can't imagine a more stressful moment than being in front of a group playing music and having something go terribly wrong.
Or sometimes not so terribly wrong, but it can feel that way. But I have learned to take it differently, and those that are here.
It's about what Jim was saying. Sometimes you can probably, sometimes the mistake you make, only you notice. Is music. I'm sure that's the case.
That's right.
You notice it. Nobody else thought anything of it if they noticed it at all. That's right. Often true with other things too. So I see Diane has a hand raised.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Diane, Diane Rodriguez, if you would unmute.
Hi,
And
can you
I
hear
will
me?
spotlight you.
Yes.
And Jim, I'm going to unspotlight you.
Hi, good morning, guys. I am very grateful to be here. And I just wanted to say, Dave, that I'm very grateful for the session 5. We were talking about it, the turning toward difficult emotions. Because growing up, we were taught to be kind to other people, to be kind to our fellow men, but there was never really a mention to be, or we were never really taught to be kind to ourselves. More
No.
often than not, when we make mistakes, we were told it's to either deal with it or forget it. It was never really take time to process it, and don't beat yourself too much about it. It's also the practice of just, if you're done with it, just forget it. But then we would never really acknowledge or accept the mistakes. And so learning about how to be kind to yourself, and seeing it more as an opportunity to learn more than being too critical with oneself is really life changing for me, because I'm very
Yeah.
hard on myself, especially because um, I like to do things the right way. So sometimes when I make mistakes, I'm very hard on myself. But now I'm learning to use humor. I get to laugh at myself now. But of course, if the mistake is offensive to somebody else, that's the time that I get to be hard on myself again. But as I get to learn into that, being mindful of my emotions and my thoughts, then I get to notice that sometimes I don't have to be that hard on myself. I just have to learn from it and to make it right. So
Yeah.
thank you, Dave, for that.
Yeah. That's a wonderful insight. And it's important to remember too that if you come, if you have the sense that that being kind to yourself is helpful, those times when you're not kind to yourself, it's easy to get into a trap of not being kind to yourself about not being kind to yourself.
Yes.
So it's a reverberating cycle. It makes it worse and worse. And so just knowing that can happen as well, that it's all a
Mhm.
learning process. So thanks. Good to see you again. So for you, it's like 3:30 in the morning there now in Philippines.
Yes. Yes.
So we're very happy
Uh,
that you're here.
Thank you.
thanks, Diane.
Thank you, Lauren.
All right, nice to see you. Diane Arlene has her hand up. Arlene, would you unmute? And I will spotlight you and unspotlight Diane.
Hi, this sort of talk of making mistakes, it reminds me of an interaction with my daughter when she was about 22. She was distressed and I was trying to help her. And she looked at me, she says, "Mom, it's okay." She said, "Wouldn't it be strange if I was the only one on the planet not having a human experience?"
Uh,
And I
wow.
think that's what mistakes are, right?
Yeah,
Human.
that's really quite profound of your daughter to
Mhm.
recognize. Because the moment something like that happens, it's difficult. It feels like we are the only one. Nobody else is having this problem. But statistically, with 7 billion people on the planet, there are probably millions of people having a similar experience at that same moment. You're not alone. Yeah, and that's a very profound insight on your daughter's part. Thanks for sharing that. And good to see you. I'm glad
Yeah, good to see you too,
glad you
David.
got connected this time. We kind of lost you last time.
Yes, yeah.
I have something to say, if you don't mind.
Yes, please. And how do I
Yeah.
pronounce your name?
Hanan.
Hanan.
Hanan. Yes.
Hanan. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I am from Casablanca, so it looks very far from you.
Uh-huh.
I don't have a particular question, but I just would like to say thank you. I may have sent an email and thank you, but I just wanna, since I have this opportunity to talk to you directly, I just want to say and to put on that website, because that really transformed my life. And I couldn't believe that I spent my whole life struggling with this emotions and pain, and the way coming into looking toward the pain, I stopped for like more than 1 week to read that and to repeat that. And that was also hurtful to me because I was like, oh my God, I spent all this life just hurting myself and being very tough on myself. And I could have just developed this self-compassion toward myself. And I just want to thank you for every single word and content you put on that website. And yeah, I mean, you're amazing, and God bless. Thank you.
Well, warms my heart to hear you say that. And
Really?
remember, while you're thinking about self-compassion, you can be compassionate for that part of yourself that all those years didn't know what to do. You know, now you have some sense of what to do, and there's a way to deal with difficult things. But when you didn't know, you didn't know. You know, but now you have a way. So I'm very pleased that that's been helpful. The turning toward, you're referring to turning toward part of the course. That's the most complex, really, of all the practices. And the fact that you've made use of that and can use that spontaneously and consistently in your life is really a testament to the depth of your practice.
Yeah, this is a really good point, because when I read about that, that moment I needed this self-compassion, because I was like, oh my God, all these years I spent it just struggling with myself, being tough on myself, because I couldn't handle those emotions. And you know that it was really a health crisis for me. I couldn't accept that. But you see, coming into that part, I think that was week 5, it was tremendous for me. And yeah, I mean, this is really another aha moment for me. I mean, even for that, I need to be self-compassionate.
Yeah, even for that, yeah. So I'm so glad that was helpful to you. That particular practice is a new practice that I put in after the MSR course was put online, because there was a need for that, a way to be self-compassionate, but also to look at what's going on. So it isn't just sort of be nice to yourself. You know, it's also being aware of just what's happening but from a larger perspective. So I'm very pleased that was helpful to you. It's great to hear that.
Thank you. I am so grateful every day. Believe me.
So I wish you the best.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And Cesare, I see your hand is up.
Hello, David. Thank you, first of all, what you're offering to the world. David, do you have anyone or any studies on the relationship between dreaming and mindfulness?
Wow.
My dreams have changed in not only me, but my dreams have been changing. It seems now they're just dreams of yesterday, what happened, of the moments of yesterday, of the day before.
So this is when you're dreaming now, they're mostly about just recent things, like yesterday and the day before. Is that what you're saying?
Of things that were not, things of the day before, yes.
And before,
and they're all beautiful. They're all beautiful dreams.
Nice.
I don't want to wake up sometimes.
Well, there's something called dream yoga, which is really about working with dreams. There's it's a whole discipline in itself in how you work with dreams, and part of the practice is to as you become more attuned with the dreams, it's in a way they're less random, you know, and they're more aligned with what's going on with you, and that you can have a dream that's about what's happened recently, and you can feel positive about that in the dream. That's a very positive sign that things are becoming integrated for you in a way that maybe they weren't integrated before, where body, emotion, and mind and spirit are all coming into alignment. But if you were doing some research and just look up on web search for dream yoga, there's the whole discipline about working with dreams that includes lucid dreaming, and it can be quite an adventure in itself. But not surprising that your dreams change, because our dreams are there's whole disciplines of psychology that are devoted to dream work, of course, and there's really a lot there. But it's definitely part of your life, and the fact that it's kind of more coherent with what's going on is, I think, is a really nice affirmation of where you are in your life right now.
Oh, thank you.
Cynthia has her hand up, Dave. Cynthia, unmute.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. In the last months, several small groups have developed for weekly meditations, sitting via Zoom or some other app. And I wonder if you have that posted on the MBSR site. You can just remind me if that's already posted, and I'll look for it. Or I'll put people in touch with the ones that I'm aware of.
Well, two things. One,
Yes.
there is a place on the site. If you go to resources, and there, you'll find right at the top of the resources, there'll be, in fact, maybe I'll just quickly do a screen share so I can show that to you. So let me go here. So you're seeing my screen, which is quite busy here. So I'm going to put that out and put that over here. And so if we go to, I'll go to Palouse Mindfulness site. Move this out of the way. And we'll go to resources. And right here, COVID-19 resources on this page, I'm going to go to that now. There are just dozens and dozens of resources. And one called Recurring Live Meditations is all the ones I know about.
Okay.
And there's one done by a mindful leader that's literally meditations every single hour of every single day. You just, any hour of the day, you can join a meditation. And there's a link there. And there's others that are daily and others that are weekly, but there's lots and lots here. And if you know of some that are not here, let me know.
Will do.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome. I wanted to honor the time, and I will be here after we close. So Shashir, if you hang around, we can talk after that, and anybody else would like to hang around is welcome to do that. But I wanted to honor the time because for some people I know it's late. Some people very late, like 2:30 in the morning, and so we'll say goodbye now. And if you want to stay on and chat a little more, you're welcome to do that. But what I'll do is I think you can all, each of you can unmute yourself. So if you like, as you say goodbye, you can unmute, say goodbye, and we'll have kind of a cacophony for a little while as people say goodbye. It's been wonderful being with you. I wish you the best. Happy holidays, whatever kind of holiday it is for you this time of year. And I hope that you and those you care about are and remain safe and healthy. So see you next time. The next time will be January 16th, I think. I'm going to look. Yeah, so that's when I have the next one scheduled. Okay. So just we'll say goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Very nice.
Bye, Dave. Bye, Lauren. Bye, Keith. Merry
It's great getting
Christmas.
together with people again.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Nona Conna, we say in Ireland.